Hello, welcome to another video by Rick Miracle, me. In my series Freemasonry and Satanism, 76 Part 3, a continuation of the Philadelphia experiment, Murder. Alexandra Bruce, edited by Peter Moon. And the date of this book, I always think the date's important. 2001. That is important. 911. Continuing on with this book, gets crazy. And it verifies a lot of other crazy information that I have been dispensing from the books I have been reading, the magazines, press releases, pictures, videos, many sources. Just like a journalist with a newspaper. You know, they post a story about this or that. And then when somebody questions that newspaper press release, newspaper article, they say, where did you get that information? Oh, so-and-so said it. What? Who else? Nobody else. Just so-and-so. This one person. That's wrong. You're supposed to second source it. And further, more. Verify, verify, verify. Which is why I read books and books and books and magazines and press releases. PDF files on legislation and documents of the government and other organizations. Look at many pictures, the symbolism. And I got a couple buddies here in the yard with me right now. Turkey number 1. Turkey number 2. I can hear him creeping up on me. Sometimes they startle me. He's ruffling his feathers. Her feathers. Anyways, continuing on with this book. Lots of crazy information. Makes one wonder. What kind of world do we live in? What's real? What's not real? The powers that be are trying to destroy Christian religion, the Christian religion. Rabbi Marvin Antelman, in his 2 books I went over, to eliminate the opate, Volume 1 and Volume 2. Opate means the belief in God, faith in God. They want to eliminate that. Why? Because they know there's some kind of spiritual connection. And it interferes with their diabolical plans for a new world order and a new age. And apparently, from my research, a Luciferian age, satanic age. It's not so far-fetched if you read the Bible and you believe in God, and you know about the cast-out angels from heaven, led by Lucifer, the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve, for those of you who are confused, Adam and Eve. And then the reptilian snake creature told them that they could eat from the tree of knowledge and learn everything, which God had told them, do not eat from that tree. I guess it was an apple tree. But they did. They were cast out of the Garden of Eden for fear they would eat from the tree of life and be as gods, maybe. Just an interesting story. So if you believe all that, what's your problem with spiritual beings, reptilian beings, gray aliens, interdimensional demonic beings, also mentioned in ancient texts and apparently many places in the Bible, of other entities from appearing out of nowhere. Voices from the sky, from a cloud, in the Bible. So anyways, what's that got to do with the Philadelphia experiment? In chapter 6, the Nazi connection. It has everything. Everything has to do with the Nazis. The Nazis were into ancient archaeology, magic, witchcraft, occult. Yes? No? So it's all tied together, as I keep saying. And the more we look into this, the more that it becomes a little clearer. So why don't I just start reading? Phil's friend, Al Belak. Phil was the character who was working for the government in the building of those underground cities, facilities, and apparently ran across some aliens and had a shootout. Al Belak was one of those people who were involved in Project Montauk, where they were into interdimensional travel, psychic abilities, which is old as the earth is. Prophets, Jesus casting out unclean spirits, Jesus manifesting tons of food from 3 loaves of bread and 2 fish to feed 4,000. UFO sightings, psychic research books I have, volumes upon volumes. We'll go over some more. Seances, table wrappings, ghost appearing in photography imagery, crop circles. You got the point. I could go on and on and on. There's something more to reality than what we know. And maybe the Illuminati, Masonic lodges, Rosicrucians, Zionists, Jesuits, the Vatican, and much more, the banksters, the Hollywood crowd making those crazy movies, maybe they know more than they let us all know. They're keeping secrets. All right. Who is the main surviving proponent of Oscar Schneider's secret history? Oscar Schneider was Phil Schneider's father. He was a U-boat captain for Germany, captured in France, and apparently the United States recruited him for the United States military. World War II period. Anyways, they believe the aforesaid documents are genuine, the documents we went over in the last video. Belak regularly shows slides of official Navy photographs of Oscar Schneider aboard a vessel that is believed to be the USS Eldridge, the ship. The one that disappeared when they turned on the microwave generators installed all around the ship, and apparently reappeared several places as ghost images all over the world before it reappeared, with soldiers in and out of the bulkhead in steel. Apparently when you time travel, even for a ship, steel, metal, people, you demanifest before you remanifest someplace else. Is this stuff true? What does it mean for the way the world believes the world is? What does it mean? What is the world, really? Keep reading this book and these other ones, it gets a little crazy. Belak, the official Navy record, says, Oscar was born in Chico, California, 1905. I read the official record when Phil still had it. All of Phil's papers disappeared after his death. So we got Oscar Schneider, Phil Schneider. Oscar was with the Philadelphia experiment program. Phil was with the digging and building of underground facilities for the government, interconnected apparently by levitation train systems from New York to California, all over the world. Does this exist? I have several books on this, and that says it does exist. And apparently some people have been murdered, imprisoned, brainwashed to keep this information confidential from the public, which I think is wrong. shouldn't be trying to take over the world. Alright, a little bit. I'm only reading my highlighted portions. Everything you know or have heard about me is false. This is what Oscar Schneider apparently told Phil, his son, on his deathbed. That's pretty believable what he says on his deathbed. I originally come from Germany. I was a master machinist at the age of 14. In 1938-39, I am not sure when, he actually was rated as a captain of a U-boat. He went around the planet sinking enemy ships. Enemies of Germany, of course, Allied ships. 39, that would be right smack before or when it began World War II. This is before the Americans were in the war. A total of 68 ships he sank, I believe. Anyways, Belek, another one of those people involved in the Montauk program where they were abducting young boys, sexually satanic abuse, torture on them, besides other kinds of electromagnetic abuse and torture on the young boys, apparently using them in time portal experiments. Guinea pigs. The things that humans do to other humans just baffles me. Watch the pictures from Vietnam War, World War II, etc. The bombing of planes, of civilians, and whole cities. It just boggles the mind. The first commandment in the Bible says, sixth commandment, first commandment on the second tablet, thou shalt not kill. It's not a suggestion, it's a commandment. And I have figured out that these satanic occult forces, like the one Aleister Crowley was involved with, the Hiawassee creature that looked like a gray alien, who said he's the god of war and vengeance. These people, their rules, their commandments, are the opposite of the Ten Commandments. So they believe they should kill the god of war and vengeance. World War I, 10% I heard on a video, were civilian casualties. World War II, it went to 30%, 20%. Vietnam War, 40%, something like that. And the Iraq War and the ones that are following now are reaching 90% civilian casualties. What's going on? I think the whole thing is about murdering citizens to get rid of them. And that's what the whole thing about global warming, Agenda 21, sustainability, biodiversity is all about. Depopulating the planet. Undomesticating mankind, as Hitler said. Just noticing above my head, I will show you. What you see there is sky spraying. You can see the straight line, straight line, straight line, coming from different directions. All this is sky spraying powder. It's supposed to be a front coming through with a little cold weather and rain, and then returning to unusual warm weather in the mountains of North Carolina. They are controlling the weather, in my opinion. And you can see the front coming in over the horizon. They are dumping chemicals, maybe biologicals. We don't know because they don't tell us. Just noticed the sky looked a little unusual. Anyways, back onto the book here. Belek says Oscar carried with him, this would be the U-boat captain for Germany, as did all U-boat captains, gold bars with which they could negotiate for all they needed. All the gold bars had the des and skullen, the skull and crossbones, on them, as well as another Nazi stamp. The skull and crossbones. There we go again. Wasn't George Bush, Kerry, and many others, George Bush's father, probably his father, and many other politicians that went to Yale or Harvard, members of the Skull and Bones Masonic Lodge, into the secret mystery schools of Babylon. Babylon means the gateway to the gods. It all becomes clearer and clearer. Anyways, moving on. Now, Phil doesn't know where Oscar got his knowledge of medicine, but apparently his knowledge was sufficient to pass the MSD. That's your medical degree, I guess. And he was in charge of all medical aspects of the Philadelphia experiment. When the ship reappeared, people were half in and half out of the bulkhead, and other crewmen and all that went mad. And all of them, if they didn't go mad, were quarantined, put in mental institutions. The government didn't want the word to get out, apparently, if all this is true. Page 72. We got pictures of him on board the Eldridge, pictures of him at his office in the Pentagon. This would be Oscar. And all the copies of his correspondence. So the United States really embraced this U-boat captain. He must have been a Mason. And as he said to Phil, you know, I was involved in the Philadelphia experiment program for 8 years, and so many things went wrong. You haven't a clue. There's a picture here. Final briefing aboard the USS Eldridge, 9 August 1943. Apparently these are the guys here we're talking about. The above photograph was discovered in Oscar Schneider's basement after his death. Val Thor is featured in the book Strangers in the Pentagon. I suppose I'll have to get that book and read it. But the character in that book looks quite different. The character above has been identified as his brother, Don. Both are allegedly aliens who have a major influence at the Pentagon. The man directly in back of Mr. Thor is Oscar Schneider. He has a crew cut and is wearing an overcoat with clasping hands. So possibly they're saying this guy here was an alien, and there's Oscar Schneider. Are they human-looking aliens? Are there aliens? We've got some more crazy information to go over. This is Oscar Schneider seated at his desk while in the Navy. Although he was officially Jewish, so when they brought him to the United States, they gave him a birth certificate and told him he was to tell the world he was Jewish, which apparently offended some of his family members. He doesn't look Jewish, it says in this article here. World War II, a very strange time. And why I do these videos, one reason, a huge reason, is we don't want World War III, which will be a stranger time. Consider the weaponry and technologies they have now. The bombing, can you imagine the bombing if it went on in the United States like it happened in Germany? Alright, Bielek says, this is the guy that was involved with Montauk, the research into time travel, time-space continuum, quantum physics, and gruesome sexual satanic sex on young boys to mind control them. You have to terrorize them, I guess, to open up blocks in the mind to program them. And one of those is man-on-boy sex, and in a very gruesome way, I suppose. And then they were also supposedly involving them in these time portals and electromagnetic radiations and other things. Experimentation, diabolical. Shouldn't be happening, in my opinion. Bielek says there is some supportive evidence that Oscar Schneider really was in Germany, in the German Navy, insofar as the gold bars were concerned. So Phil found his father's gold bars, so apparently it was true. Phil said he had them. They were in the vault, the safety deposit box. Bruce, this is the author of this book, says, Cynthia told me, that would be Phil's ex-wife, Phil had them analyzed, and they were found to have dental alloys in them, fragments of teeth. I'm reading some stuff in this book, and I wonder if it's not propaganda or is it true. So if the gold had teeth filings in them, they had to be yanking them out of people's mouths. About the gold bars, Philip became aware of the gold bars after Oscar died, and he went through the safety deposit boxes with his brother. Photographs were taken of the gold bars, and Philip stated that they had the markings on them, which made him believe they were from the Nazis. Remember the Pools, James and Suzanne, I'm going to go over this book soon, who financed Hitler. And these were the people right out of New York, the Zionist Jewish bankster folks, wanting to create a homeland in Palestine, which is a precursor to the New World Order. It's all moving forward, too. Make no mistake. I have more evidence. I was watching Naomi Wolf video today, an insider journalist at DC who wrote several books. Naomi Wolf, look up her videos on YouTube. Go buy her books. But there seems to be clear evidence there is a secret government, entities, peoples behind our politicians who have largely lost their power. They're told what to do. They're a face for public consumption. Everything the government does these days with these school shootings and bombings and terror situations and much more is created activities. Mossad from Israel, the secret agencies, NATO, Pentagon, CIA secret agencies for public consumption, to sway the public mind, make the public believe what they want the public to believe. It's crazy. There is plenty of documentation to convince me that Oscar was involved in many high security activities, such as the Bikini Atoll nuclear sites test. That would be the Bikini Islands, the nuclear test, which reminds me, of this biodiversity, global warming, sustainability, baloney. And I call it baloney for one big reason. The governments, the powers that be, in the United States alone, 2,000, but I think combined, over 4,000 nuclear bombs have been exploded in the atmosphere, in the air, in the ocean, in the ground. These people have done more damage, more pollution, more devastation to the earth than all the people on the planet could do in 10,000 years with those 4,000 nukes and other weapons. Terrific. It's inhumane, diabolical, evil. So there's plenty of documentation to convince me that Oscar was involved in the high security activities, such as the Bikini Atoll nuclear test, the Philadelphia experiment, and nuclear propulsion systems on submarines. Alright, so that was a little bit more about Phil and Oscar Schneider. Oscar was his father, who was involved in the Philadelphia experiment, a German U-boat captain recruited by the United States after France arrested him, captured him. And then his son, Phil Schneider, was involved in the building of underground cities around the world, and he was apparently murdered. And Al Biebeck in this story so far was another character that you can go look on YouTube and watch some of these videos with Al Biebeck, Preston Nichols, Phil Schneider, Stephen Swervlow, and more. Duncan Cameron, Isn't Cameron the Prime Minister, the last name for the one over there in England? Been noticing the similarities in these names over and over and over and over. Alright, next chapter. Underground. And I'm not reading everything. I'm not trying to do an audiobook. I'm reading just sentences and paragraphs. And go buy the book. Verify. Highlight your own book. Show it to your friends. Pass it around. Let's wake up the world and maybe prevent World War III. In any event, know what's going on around you as things happen with the propaganda on the television, which is blatant lies. As Naomi Wolf will tell you if you go watch her videos on YouTube, and many others. And you notice I suggest all these people. I research the researchers. I research the authors. I don't believe everything I read. A lot of these books are propaganda, and a lot of these books are trying to expose the danger to we the people. Anyways, The Underground, Chapter 7, page 83. Phil Schneider's ex-wife tells me that she is increasingly convinced he was murdered because of the details he was revealing about the secret government underground bases. The fact of his father's involvement in several top-secret Navy projects and the fact that Phil was strangled to death do lead a degree of credibility to what he was saying. Go watch Phil Schneider's videos on YouTube. It's a very interesting subject, topic, mind control, time travel, etc. Alien involvement. Is it true? The exploration of the topic of underground bases immediately lands one in a topsy-turvy world where what is generally considered to be science fiction and fantasy is called the truth. One of the most grounded and well-researched books currently available on the subject of underground bases was written by Richard Sonder, Ph.D., entitled Underground Bases and Tunnels, What is the Government Trying to Hide? That was that red book I showed you numerous times in numerous videos. You can just go look it up on a used book site or the books in Barnes & Noble and something. And Underground Bases and Tunnels by Richard Sauder, S-A-U-D-E-R. Moving on. The following is a quote from an article he wrote in March-April 1996, issue of the British UFO magazine. This would be the author's Sauder, Richard Sauder. Over the Christmas holiday in 1992, I was suddenly awakened one night from a sound sleep. As it happened, I did not have long to wait at all to find out why I had been awakened. It seems that someone had an important message to deliver to me by a rather unorthodox method. All of a sudden, I heard a voice speaking very clearly in my right ear. The voice said, "The underground bases are real." At this point, believe you me, I was all ears. It continued for 2 or 3 minutes, telling me in general terms that there are secret underground bases, that there are people who live and work underground at the facilities, and that the general public little suspect the existence of the secret facilities, and if the public did know what went on underground, they would be astonished. The voice spoke like this for a few minutes, and then stopped as abruptly as it began. So there he is laying in his bed, and he hears this rustling sound, and some voice talks to him, like some ghost or something. Moving on, maybe it's some kind of benevolent beings, angelic or something, trying to get this author to research it, to wake up the public. Just saying. As with many other accounts of the underground, we hear of high-speed levitation train systems, ancient Atlantean cities, and several alien races living underground for thousands or millions of years. See what all this is involving? What is reality? As I said in the beginning of this video, truth may be stranger than fiction, as the saying goes. Since Phil was presumably killed because of what he was talking about, Belek says, let me show you Phil's statement here. It says 17 years in black projects, carried a level 3 security clearance, Rhyolite 38. So apparently that's a pretty high level security clearance. Moving on, page 86. But there is no such thing as Rhyolite, and I said. So this is the author discussing this with Belek. Well, and of course you're going to tell me there is no black card clearance either. He refused to answer the question, and we were cut off to air. Another character I recommend you look up on YouTube, if you really want to get into this topic of aliens, underground bases, New World Order, and the goings-on of the secret establishment that rules our government and world. Ted Gunderson, ex-government insider, I think he was working for the CIA, intelligence guy. He did quite a few lectures you can go watch. Ted Gunderson, popular person out there in the conspiracy research world. So the black card clearance, that's above the president, right? And Belek says basically it is. He knew things that the president didn't know. We're talking about Phil, projects he was in. So the gut presidents of the United States, like Obama or Bush, Clinton, whoever, are not privy to these goings-on of underground facilities, nor of the secret government that actually rules the world. I'm sure they know that they to do what they're told, or they'll be assassinated like President Kennedy. There's more going on than we the people are aware, as I keep saying. Hence, I do videos. We're talking about Phil, projects he was in. He told me the projects he was in. He spent months in Area 51. There you go. He was supposedly known as an interpreter for a guest of the government, a reptilian. We keep coming back to these reptilians. These beings other than flesh and blood humans like me. Might bode us well if we were to look into this and wake up. And what's going on? Why are we allowing our government to bomb the smithereens out of the Arabs and then demonizing them here in the United States? Although it's the holiday season, I go to a few parties, go out and have a beer at the jazz bar or something. And anybody who says anything on the subjects talks about those terrorist Arabs in the United States, those Muslims, they're evil. It's all propaganda to sway public opinion, to program the public. The real villains are the secret establishment behind the scene, the Zionist, Talmudic Jewish folks, secret Jesuit, now the Pope is a Jesuit, who are the assassins or the warriors of the Vatican, the Catholic Church. The people into the Kabbalah, the Hollywood symbolism, the Illuminati symbols, the one eye. The presidents, everybody doing the devil sign, the 3 6s. It's repeatedly shown to us. This is obvious. This is not hearsay, supposition. This is obvious. The halftime football Super Bowl shows with the satanic rituals, Shiva dances, Madonna, Bells, American Idol, the all-seeing eye, the football, the all-seeing eye. Symbolism is everywhere. Eurovision, the European version of American Idol. Conchita Wurst won Eurovision. Conchita means a female part. Wurst, of course, is a sausage. Could be a symbol for a male part. The face was dressed up like Jesus, and the bottom was a woman in a silky dress singing the song, The Phoenix Rising, with the words, "You Can't Stop Us." If you've been watching my videos, you know I can go on and on and on and on with examples. These entities, whatever they are, evil, satanic beings and forces are mocking us and playing us for fools. Laughing, I watched in one video by an insider at the White House, that when they have an election and they win, they give each other high fives and joke about how they fooled the public again. God help us all. If the Bible is true, which I believe it is, we've got some dark days coming. Again, it might behoove people to wake up. I guess one escape, I shouldn't say I guess, I believe one escape is belief in Jesus. If you believe all this other stuff that's going on, then you can't say that Jesus wasn't real. A lot of people said, oh, that's been proven a myth. There was a press release in the news the other day that over there in Jerusalem area, apparently at the house of Mary, the mother of Jesus, they found this coffee table-like box and the symbols all around it, and they said it was obviously Jesus' mother's house, and they made some points about the symbols. How could it be Jesus' mother's box if Jesus didn't exist? And the press release didn't argue it. It had pictures of this box. I, of course, saved that document, and I need to print it out and show it in a future video, which I will. So I'm sitting there scratching my head saying, wait a minute, they got these people all over the United States brainwashed that there is no God, Jesus was a myth. They're digging up archaeological digs over there like rats looking for something to eat or a dog looking for a bone, and it's making the headlines in the papers. And if it's something really outrageous, they try to conceal it. This evidence they're looking for, ancient artifacts, information. What? And then we talk about bizarre stuff like time travel of a gigantic battleship. Boys being pushed through time tunnels. And there's more information out there that this apparently is true. One book I have called Oddities, some guy in New York 100 years ago was collecting newspaper clippings and magazine clippings of articles of things that were oddities, like a whale appearing in a field in Kansas. So I'm scratching my head, a little bit of a techie guy myself, thinking, well, how could that be possible? Then I'm thinking about this ship, and I think, well, wait a minute, a couple bolts of lightning could have created a magnetic field around the whale on the ocean. Maybe just perfectly right to create some kind of time portal, little vortex. So the whale dematerialized, but the Earth is turning, of course. And then when it rematerialized, it was 500 miles away. I don't know. Theorizing. All right, here, Belek says, moving back to this thing here. So we're talking about that Phil was in the underground facilities, even Area 51, and apparently he was communicating with a government guest, a reptilian. In the government and the private contractor work he did for the government, Phil was a geologist. He was in Russia. He was everywhere. He knew all about the underground Russian subway system that are like or identical to what we have. We have them here in the U.S. I have ridden on them, according to Belek. So are these underground subway systems real? And do they involve some kind of alien beings? Which, of course, Hitler was apparently in contact with some kind of beings. It was something called the Vril. And also something underground facilities in Antarctica. We're going to go over this stuff. Examine it. What's true, what's false. Belek says, no, the ones I was on were a different system. It's 2 hours from California to New York. It's faster than a plane. These underground tunnels. You punch it in on an elevator, a special punched key panel. You punch in the right code. So if you want to get to one of these train systems, you got to go down into the earth by an elevator. Typically, they're a mile to a half mile down. Belek says this is all over the U.S. and it goes into Canada. So if all this stuff is true, advanced beings or people with knowledge on Earth, underground facilities, all this stuff, and the Georgia USA Guidestones say they want to have a worldwide population of 500 million. The Agenda 21, biodiversity, sustainability, and all the other government documents, which I have in the books, they want to get rid of 6 billion people. For no other reason. They don't want them. They can't control them. They need to keep 500 million for slaves, obviously, farming, and also apparently these reptilian creatures and other ones use humans for maybe materialization, like the slaughtered cattle out west and stuff like that. And apparently at Roswell, the alien spaceship with human body parts. So apparently, and with the Frankenstein information coming from Geneva, believe it or not, vampires and all that, apparently this myth or lore, there's some truth to it, possibly. Some strange things. That Arizona Wilder, David Icke video, I keep mentioning, if you haven't seen it, go watch it. Naming names. Eyewitness accounts. The Basis series with Miles Johnston. And he's got quite a few series of different whistleblowers, people, insiders, abductees, whatever, telling about this stuff, and more and more. One time I accidentally wound up with my research on a witchcraft site, and I'm glad I've got that vision out of my head. But apparently when they do these satanic rituals, it can be quite horrific, quite perverting, beyond belief, if I didn't see it with my own eyes. And I did eyewitness what I perceived to be 7 orange orbs in Orlando, Florida. I took pictures, I've showed them in my previous videos. I have had an out-of-body experience. I've talked about it in my previous videos. So there is more to reality than what we know. And it might behoove us to wake up and not believe the propaganda on the boob tube, the movies. And apparently there's some really crazy movies coming out, if they can get any crazier. Moving on, Belek. Rhyolite is a special subdivision of the geologists. So if you have a Rhyolite security clearance, it's a special clearance for geologists working in these underground facilities. Rhyolite is a gemstone, and consequently, this was the labeling for the geologists. This particular clearance level involved geology, projects in geology, underground construction, and so forth. Bruce says, the author of this book, and Phil said that there were at least 2 of these facilities in every state, if not more. Belek says, he said there were 131 of these bases, and he was going to put out the locations, every one of them. I guess you can see why they murdered him. Alright, moving on. So apparently, Belek's speaking now, and he says, my mother is very psychic. Apparently this was somebody's mother here. She said her mother went into a state one day and asked to be shown what had actually happened to Phil on the night when he died. So it goes into an explanation of the whole thing that happened to Phil by this psychic. And I ran into a medium the other day at a party, which was interesting. If the medium was right, I'm in for some changes in my life. Which, by the way, on the bottom of my videos, I did put an option to donate to my research because there may be some changes in my life, because I've been running out of my own money in the last 11 years making these videos, and I may have to focus on going out in the world and making some money. I just want to pay my rent and eat and keep doing this, but you got to do what you got to do. And I make these videos, and maybe it is time that I've done enough, said enough, read enough. I wonder about that. So it says here, Bruce, he would charge his stories from time to time as to the origins of his injuries, which leads me to believe he was heavily brainwashed. Belak, well, I believe that he was at various times because of the fact he was involved in certain very high security black op programs. So the government can brainwash people, as we have learned, and that was part of the things going on at Montauk. They were mind controlling people. And young boys, I guess, were more susceptible to the programming. And apparently now, according to some of the videos and stuff that I have learned, even listening to Arizona Wilder and David Icke, it could possibly be 1 million of these mind-controlled, zombie-like people all over the United States that can be told what to do, programs called up, and they will do it. It is. Yes, it is the protocol. When you leave, you have finished the project, and then you're giving a debriefing. So when you're done with the project, they want to give you a debriefing. This is a polite way of saying you're brainwashed. He had been to NATO for about 2 years. Bruce, moving on. I'm just reading small portions and then adding my commentary. He also worked on the construction of an underground base in New Guinea. Bruce, the author, says, but then again, someone who's been mind controls is suffering from multiple personality disorder, and self-mutilation is a very common symptom of MPD, multiple personality disorder. Bruce, I have a speech of Phil's on videotape where he claims he lost his fingers due to a cobalt radiation gun in the 1979 Dulce skirmish shot by a 7-foot-tall, big-nosed gray. Belak, he was involved in a lot of skirmishes in the underground before the one at Dulce. One time he was in an underground section. He had to bring his own light, and the air was very foul. There were a lot of dust, and he thought he saw something moving and realized he was looking. Straight at a tall alien. Alright, continuing on with this video. It's December 17th, Thursday, 2015. 4 p.m. in the mountains of North Carolina. Continuation of this book. Anyways, we were talking about when Phil was in an underground cavern, and a lot of dust was there, and he thought he saw something moving, and realized he was looking at an alien. A tall alien. Page 94. This gets more bizarre. For the last hour or so, I've been watching a video called The Chair and the Beast. Duncan Cameron, and the publisher is Channel 3X on YouTube. So when I do this research, Not only do I read the book and other books, I watch videos, look up magazine articles. I really get into this to try to back up what I say and what I think. We started out with the Peter Moon book, Transylvania Sunrise. Radu Cinemar with Peter Moon, where apparently in Romania they found this underground facility, ancient, with advanced technology greater than the technologies we have today. Apparently it was guarded by extremely high-tech electronics that would incinerate a couple soldiers who tripped some alarms. And inside there were holographic projectors. You pushed buttons on the table or panels, and these projections came up detailing the history of the earth and other things. And the chairs and the tables were for giants, not our size human beings. Lest we forget Stephen Quayle's book, The Giants, and the Nephilim and other creatures mentioned in mythology and the Bible about ancient giants. So, I guess what I'm trying to grasp here is, what is reality? And I'm watching these videos, reading this book, and we're going to get into some very interesting subjects. But you know, different planes of existence. I can understand. This is the material plane here where we humans live. And apparently on this human plane, and this series is Freemasonry and Satanism, we have some evil people and maybe other kinds of entities, the gray aliens and the reptilians, who are into witchcraft. And apparently the pentagram, like the star on the Israeli flag, is a magical symbol. King Solomon used it to bring forth demons and spiritual beings and to control them. In Project Montauk, they had something called a Montauk chair that they would put a psychic in, and the psychic, along with the electronics in the room, was able to open up time portals, tunnels, like you see on Stargate, sort of. And apparently, watching this video, as I've said numerous times before, and I have to remember where I got the information, but in this video here with Duncan Cameron, one of the people mentioned in these books, who was a participant in the Montauk Project at the end of Long Island, indeed, they were abducting hundreds, if not thousands, of young boys to experiment on with mind control, sexual magic control, and time tunnel, whatever control. They were pushing the young boys into the time tunnel, not knowing where they were going to go. Again, Duncan Cameron, The Chair and the Beast. I'm looking at my computer here. Channel 3X, an interesting conversation with Duncan Cameron, explaining a lot of this. I can understand the planes, the material plane and the spiritual plane of reality. And the spiritual plane, where we all come from as spiritual beings. And being born as humans, when the baby is born, or when the embryo is created, I don't know exactly or have any idea exactly when the spirit enters the body, but at some point, the heart probably starts beating, the spiritual entity goes into the body, and we get to live this life on planet Earth. And we have a choice. Some people can choose the pathway to heaven, the 10 Commandments, to treat others as you would want to be treated, to be decent, good, or chaos and anarchy. Take what you want, be vicious, kill, murder, rape, steal, pedophilia, anything you want, as Aleister Crowley said. So I'm evolving as I watch these videos, magazine articles, read these books, and I'm making these videos to try to share the information. And then, of course, we looked at the Black Sun, which was another cult, and we're going to be making more videos of this one. And Montauk Revisited, we'll be making more videos on this one. So with all that said, I can grasp the idea of planes of existence. This material plane, this earth, hurtling through space, and the spiritual entities that come and go. When we're born, and then, of course, we die, the spirit leaves the body. Now, what other kind of entities might be on the planet and what it has to do with the Bible, Christianity, Hinduism, Buddhism, Islam, and the other religions on the planet, shamans, whether from Peru, American Indians, Australia, Russia. The shamanic religion, or way the tribes approach the spiritual world, is documented all over the world. And then, of course, we have all those ancient monuments, like the pyramids and the Sphinx, apparently with underground facilities. And over there in Jerusalem, which apparently is why all these wars are taking place in the Middle East, 9/11, the New Age, the New World Order, the gay agenda, microchipping, disarming the people, false flags, terror events, gun shootings. Something is evolving into this age of Aquarius. And probably World War III is looming, as said by Albert Pike in Morals and Dogma, which we will be revisiting, and other biblical prophecies. And then we got Zachariah Stitchins interpreting the stones over there, the tablets, clay tablets. And apparently then we have Arizona Wilder and David Icke talking about people in high places, including Zachariah Stitchin, at these satanic Illuminati rituals, who take off their clothes and wear long robes and decloak, shapeshift, back into reptilian form. And I know this is all crazy, but that's why I'm reading these different sources of books, materials, magazines, videos, press releases, photographs, trying to get to the bottom of this. One thing I don't agree with, that I've been reading in this book, is apparently they're claiming there are multi-universes. That I'm sitting here doing this video in this universe, on this planet, and in some other universe I'm doing something else. I may live in a different city, may have chosen a different career, and an infinite number of other universes. That seems a little far-fetched. But as far as the planes of existence, for one thing, you know, you can call it heaven, a higher plane than this earthly plane, and then another plane below, which may be some kind of Hades, or places where evil people go. I can sort of buy that. It makes sense. It's logical. I mean, you wouldn't want the evil people in heaven, and apparently that's how Lucifer and the angels were cast out, for revolutionary thinking. So anyways, just a brief explanation of where I'm at with my thinking. So I'll continue reading the book, and maybe this conversation will make a little more sense. Phil said he didn't know whether he was more shocked, the alien or him. So Phil bumps into an alien in one of the underground bases he's building. Phil had a gun, which he legally wasn't supposed to carry, but he grabbed it and shot the alien dead. The alien had been reaching for his weapon. So the alien had a weapon too. So again, we don't know about some of this stuff. Mind control, propaganda, trying to destroy Christianity, a paradigm shift. The way people think. They want to shift it to a new way of thinking, the new age, the new world order, a paradigm shift. Movies like Star Trek, Star Wars, saying we went to the moon when obviously we couldn't go through the Van Allen belt. Even today, the space shuttle can't go through the Van Allen belt. A paradigm shift, brainwashing, mind control. Concerning issue is where are we going with this new age, new world order, possibly World War III, one world government, one world currency, one world religion, apparently Luciferian, microchipping people. Doesn't sound too good. So anyways, moving on. He said one time it was a reptilian, another time it was a gray. So Phil had run into these different aliens in the underground bases he was working on building. And there were reptilians, the snake-like creature, crazily enough, mentioned in the Bible. And the gray aliens, and crazy enough, the one Aleister Crowley said he was incommunicado with, called Hiowas, who said he was the god of war and vengeance. So I'm convinced the other entities in the Bible, and maybe King Solomon pulling forth demons and spiritual beings with his magic ring with the Star of David on it, like on the Israeli flag. And if you look up witchcraft and images, you'll find it. Masonic symbols and images, you'll find it. In all the churches, you walk into the church, you'll find the six-pointed star. The Pope has it on his hat. Islam has it. The Jewish religion has it. Kabbalah has it. Witchcraft has it. Rosicrucians. Something is a little amiss here, and we might want to wake up and see what it is. Hence these videos. He said he got burned by more than one of those radiation guns, like the one in the Dulce fight. So apparently these aliens have some kind of radiation guns. True or not? That's not the point I'm trying to make here. I'm trying to pick out some information in this material that will add to my collective research to allow me to deduce what is real and what is not. I'm not so open-minded that I buy everything. 64 went in and 4 came out. 64 military men went down into this Dulce base and 4 came out. So I guess a lot of people died battling the aliens in New Mexico at the base Dulce. So Phil came out, he was carried out. He had severe burns when he came out. He said his guts were out on the cot. It cut his ribs and cut his chest open. We now have weapons comparable to the aliens. So apparently, today, the government has weapons like this. So the author, Bruce, says, the author of this book, in this conversation, so what would you say is the purpose of all these hundreds of underground bases? What's the idea? So Bielek says, remember we're having a conversation with Al Bielek, one of the people participating in the Montauk experiment, messing around with time and space, time travel, and mind control, and abducting hundreds, if not thousands, of young boys, performing horrific experiments on them. So I think this is a worthwhile topic for my series, Freemasonry and Satanism, knowing what we know that the Masons, Illuminati, control much of the world, Council of Foreign Relations, Heritage Foundation, Club of Rome, Bohemian Grove, Bilderberger groups, on and on and on and on. And apparently their religion is satanic and Luciferianism. And everything is connected, so I feel this stuff is connected to what the title of this series is, Freemasonry and Satanism. Bielek says they're building a lot of super weapon systems underground. So he says they're building a lot of super weapon systems underground. And I know it's hard to believe this stuff, that men are capable of this, or possibly involved with aliens, worshiping the devil. But go watch some videos about World War II and the Vietnam War. And the insane bombing of civilians in cities, 2 nuclear bombs. Over 400 nuclear explosions carried out on planet Earth for experiments by all the governments of the world. Stuff gets a little mind-bending. It is a complete underground network of bases and cities, including ancient cities that have been there for thousands of years. And it's all there in preparation for a potential invasion. Phil knew about all of it. He was the official interpreter for a reptilian in Area 51. So like I said, when we continue on with more videos on other books that I read, all this will be background information in our subconscious, and it might make future videos and books I go over it might make it more sense. We can say, okay, I can see where that fits in. So Phil saw what it was, and it wasn't human. And there are plenty of UFO books about abductions. If you go on a UFO sighting reporting site right now on the internet, we've done that in previous videos of mine. People are reporting UFOs every day. Common denominator descriptions too. Orange orbs, large cigar-shaped spaceships, flying saucers, bright light orbs, triangular objects. And a lot of people say that the military today of the US, NATO, and the world, our governments have these technologies. So Phil was working in an underground base, and the commander there told him to mind his own business. And he said, "Who's that?" "They're behind the panel." And the general says, "Oh, you saw him? That's one of the guests of the government." The alien was a guest of the government? Why don't we people know about this, if it's true? We've been trying to get him to talk for quite some time. And Phil says, "Let me try." And the general says, "You can't." So he had to be put into a special spacesuit type structure with his own air supply and refrigeration system and the external communication apparatus before he went into the room where the reptilian was. So apparently Phil was going to try to communicate with the reptilian in the underground base. Finally, after an hour, this thing started emitting these strange squeaking sounds. This all sounds crazy, doesn't it? He was talking in English, but it was hard to understand what he was saying because you can't talk any language, because they can talk any language. So they're having the conversation still here with Bruce, the author of this book, and Al Bielek. And he says, yes, he was in a wheelchair when I first met him, an electric wheelchair to get around. That would be Phil. I got him started on the lecture circuit. I got him sponsored for the lecture in Idaho in May of 1995. So to me, the dates are important on this stuff. Moving on the chapter on the underground, page 98. As are many of the others who have been involved with the abusive ends of the so-called secret government projects, Phil was a survivor until his brutal murder. Phil was privy to the secret underground military culture that dealt not only with the defense of the United States, but with the phenomena, whether true or based upon mass hypnosis, that is known as aliens. Now, we went over those books on Zionism, the Talmud, and did a whole series in a row on that. And now I'm doing the Peter Moon Marathon, a whole series of book on that. Because I think these technologies, mind control, electronics, Philadelphia experiment, I think we need to put it into perspective. With the Gwen towers, the HARP transmitters, the sky spraying, the FEMA camps, the hollow point bullets the government's buying, Jade Helm, the apparently crisis actor created shootings and the France bombing, and go check on the internet. And a lot of people are supposedly coming up with evidence that that was another false flag. Then, of course, we got an election next year with a really strange group of people vying to be president of the United States. Can you imagine if Israel puts their man in the Washington? Well, I guess they've already had their man in there. But if they really get somebody that's pro-Zionism and Israel takes over the White House and the government, can you imagine? Things will happen quickly, just like it said in those Zionist Talmudic books we went over in all those videos. The Jewish Utopia, Bloody Zion, the ultimate world order. All those books. So the author of this book says, the premise of this book is that Phil Schneider was murdered to cover up information directly related to the enigma known as the Philadelphia experiment. I'm having trouble speaking today. Phil's father was ostensibly connected to that experiment and its continued research, which is now known as either the Phoenix Project, I'm going to have to look that up, do some research on it, or the Montauk Project, and or all of the various offshoots. The Phoenix Project. At least let's not forget Eurovision that I mentioned before, the American Idol program in Europe, where Conchita Wurst won the contest. Conchita is a female part, Wurst could be a male part, means sausage. And the guy who won, or girl, I've yet to figure out which sex it is, but had the face of Jesus and the body of a woman in a silky dress, singing the song Phoenix Rising, which has the words, "You can't stop us." So we need to put all this into perspective. Keep it up here and say, wait a minute. I've heard this. I've heard that. How are these things connected? The original Philadelphia experiment murder actually refers to Dr. Morris K. Jessup. He was the one who wrote that book on UFOs. He was the first one to expose the Philadelphia experiment project, and he was found dead in his car. The astrophysicist who was found dead in his car as an apparent case of carbon monoxide poisoning. Moving on, since that time there have been numerous attempts to silence any information on the subject. This lack of information is further compounded by deliberate disinformation entered by various parties to distract people from the truth. The expose of the so-called Montauk Project by Preston Nichols suffers many of the same problems. So you can look up Preston Nichols on YouTube and watch him talk about this. Al Bebeck, watch him talk about this. Cameron Duncan, watch him talk about this. Peter Moon, maybe. All these people. Oh, where are we at here? Here we have a scientific genius who was plagued by memories of being programmed. His most recent work, this would be Preston Nichols, the electronic expert. The Music of Time was censored. So he tried to publish a book, and they tried to stop him from publishing it. Moving on, and I'm only reading my highlighted portions and adding my commentary. Go buy the book. I'm not making an audiobook. So anyways, here, Preston Nichols was en route for a cable access program hosted by Janet Russell, stopped by a police car. He was taken to an unfamiliar precinct where he was beaten 20 or 30 times with a nightstick, covered with towels. 2 officers were present. One told him not to appear on the show, Preston Nichols, who wrote the book The Music of Time, which was censored. You see what I'm saying? Something seems more to this than meets the eye. Why would the government, if this is true, be trying to stop this knowledge from getting out? Obviously, if they have nefarious plans for we people, like you can see with the sky spraying, the HARP system, the Gwen Towers, ground wave, and other things going on, the propaganda on TV, the bombing and murder and mayhem in the Middle East with the Arabs fleeing, going to Europe and the United States, fake terror events, and then the government wants to increase the police powers, while we know that they even say the words over and over and over. They want a new world order, and the rainbow symbol is for the new age. And the gay agenda has the rainbow symbol. And there's all kinds of satanic symbolism in football halftime shows, Grammys, all kinds of things on TV. Makes one wonder what's going on. The above is a symptomatic of people involved in breaking the news of the so-called secret government projects. Lest we forget, as I've mentioned before, those doctors who were involved in researching the dangers of the vaccines. Several of them have mysteriously died. People involved in biology, many of them have died. Astronomy, many of them have died. Military leaders have been purged from the government in the last couple of years. You can look this up and see it. There's just so much going on. Banksters, many of them have been dying. Insiders who probably know too much. And many other people. Whistleblowers, people trying to get the word out, expose what's going on with all those books I went over. Something certainly seems to be looming in our future that may not be too good. Hard evidence is discouraged, and we are left to put together fragments as if we were working with a jigsaw puzzle. So now you know why I do all these different types of books and try to see where they all fit in this big puzzle of reality. If you've been watching my previous videos on so many different subjects that I think that fits in the Freemasonry and Satanic circle. The forces that control the world belong to one mystery school of Babylon cult or another, including witchcraft. And apparently their deity, their god, is this satanic being, Luciferian, Baal, Moloch. I'm learning more about this stuff every day. It becomes a little clearer and a little clearer and a little clearer. A very interesting piece of the Philadelphia Experiment Montauk Project puzzle appeared right after the death of Phil Snyder. All right. And I got something called here the Pruitt connection. And I think I'm just going to make a synopsis and not try to read this chapter because I want to jump into the next one. But apparently Preston Nichols made many offhanded and casual remarks about his boss at Montauk. The man's name was Jack Pruitt. So they tried to track down Jack Pruitt. They couldn't track him down, but they found out he had a son, Glenn. And it says here on page 103, Glenn had grown up hearing a lot about the Philadelphia Experiment from his grandfather, Lee Pruitt. Lee told many stories to his grandson about his internship under Nikola Tesla. Here we go. That's another thing to think about. This whole reality we live in today, with these cell phones, fancy cameras, laptop computers, everything. This is all brand new stuff within the last 100 years. Less than that. They didn't have this technology when apparently the Apollo craft were supposed to be going off to the moon. 1969? 1970? So from 1970 to 2000 is 30 years. This is 15. That's 45 years. So for thousands of years, here's the growth. And since Nikola Tesla, 100 years ago, it's just gone off the chart. And also when Aleister Crowley did one of those huge satanic rituals involving probably sacrificing young children or ritual sex and then maybe murder. Whatever he did anyways, when some of the material I read and went over, that's when those UFOs were spotted over the White House and appearing all over the country. After World War II and after some of these Montauk programs had taken place, opening up portals to another dimension, to another plane of existence. So anyways, what I was talking about, that I want to just skip over this chapter, Glenn goes on and on. He's a bit of a psychic, so he says, but that he believes there are multi-universes. In other words, there could be 100 Ricks out there, one in each universe, and my life could have had a different variation in each one. It's an interesting conversation if you want to go read it, but I just summarized it for you. I really don't, I find it very difficult to believe. Let's see, I think I can read something here. The survivors often come from families with outwardly Mormon and Masonic backgrounds. They claim that they were essentially bred to be, as well as to be bred, mind control operatives for the CIA's Project Montauk and MK Ultra sub-project, which we discussed earlier in this book. Again, I encourage people to go look at that Arizona Wilder David Icke video. And apparently these Illuminati families do interbreed with each other to reinforce a particular DNA bloodline, which allows them some special psychic abilities. And another one they mention here, I don't know if you've heard about this, but these facts eerily resonate with the information in Transformation of America, a book authored by alleged Project Monarch survivor Kathy O'Brien. Go watch her videos, and she tells a similar story as Arizona Wilder in a discussion with David Icke. And if you go on my website, rickmiracle.com, I have a whole page, a different video from a different person who claims to be involved in this mind control, Illuminati situations, including Miles Johnston in his series, the Basis series over there in England, Britain, and he interviews people who are prior abductees or people who were rescued, and then under hypnotism or otherwise they recall what had happened to them, and the descriptions of some of the events are quite horrible, including young babies being put into cages with boa constrictors to be eaten, or wild animals, lions and cats. What experiments? What are this madness that's going on? It's the only way I can describe it if it's true. And I've seen some of the websites for witchcraft. I was looking up witchcraft holidays. I was wondering what the dates were, to see how they coincided with Christian holidays, etc. And I ran across a couple websites with some photographs of things that are just too much to believe. Witchcraft. Suffice it to say, it involved naked babies and other things happening. It'd make you ill to think about it. But if there's something out there that's this evil, again, it might behoove us to be aware of it. So moving on, Lee Pruitt sat Glenn down and said, "Well, it's not that I don't want you to know. It's that I feel like your father sold out the human race." So Jack Pruitt was working on the Montauk program. He didn't tell his son, Glenn, about anything. And his uncle says, Lee Pruitt, "I feel like your father sold out the human race. And I really don't want anything to do with him." So Glenn was asking his uncle why he had kind of disowned his brother. Pushing boys through these time tunnels, satanic sexual rituals on these boys, and mind controlling them for whatever nefarious, sinister purposes. Sex slaves, assassins. So I'm skipping over that, moving to another subject in this book. They got something called quantum realities here. The Nazis at Montauk 5 are located primarily in the base beneath Antarctica, in that world. So they say in these other realities there are other Montauk bases and other things going on, which really doesn't make sense to me, but what do I know about the New Age? I know I'm going to research more when I do some of the Helena Blavatsky's book, The Secret Doctrine, The Reappearance of the Christ, Alice Bailey. More of Morals and Dogma. All these things were apparently spirit guides or spirit masters from the other dimension are giving Alice Bailey and Helena Blavatsky and Albert Pike all this information, which is the foundation for the New Age. And to prepare for that, they're to bring about the New World Order. So they have to create a paradigm shift in the human thinking to bring this about. And some people will resist. And probably there'll be people who will not swear allegiance to Lucifer. And all those guillotines you can look up that were purchased by the governments and hollow point bullets in FEMA camps. Everything makes sense. So anyways, chapter 12, the point I wanted to make here, is the chapter I wanted to do next, and skip over that multi-universe theory. The New World Order in this book. The New World Order. The world can therefore seize the opportunity, Persian Gulf crisis, to fulfill the long-held promise of a New World Order, where diverse nations are drawn together in common cause to achieve the universal aspirations of mankind. George Herbert Walker Bush. Arizona Wilder talks about him in that David Icke interview. What if it's true? He attended the Bohemian Grove with the big demon god Moloch, the fire in the belly, throwing in a child, a baby, called the cremation of care. The men were dressed in long robes and they ship in some gay men, while you could hear in the background screeching like a Halloween party. Witches' coven, witchcraft, ceremony. Too much to believe. What exactly is the New World Order? Page 133. George Bush invokes the concept of a New World Order in order to paint a picture of a positive, nearby future with uncharted vistas of multinational world government corporation, perpetual presidential candidate Pat Buchanan bandies the term about with a less than warm and friendly connotation. He has propounded for years in primetime sound bites about an impending New World Order, which he says threatens to wipe out all that is good in America. We know they're trying to destroy Christianity and bring about this New Age stuff. Makes one wonder. We keep reading these books and hearing these different people what they say. Maybe we'll be able to figure it out. In the most general sense, the New World Order signifies a future alignment of world power which is not clearly distinguished at this time. Some people dread it while others welcome it, whatever it is. And I'm here to tell you now, I try to talk to a lot of people about anything, and I've got to say, 90% of the people will refuse to listen to you, think you're crazy. The Arabs are all evil and are over here going to rape and kill everybody. That's the mind control going on right now. And that Jeb Bush would probably be a good president if you're a Republican, and Hillary will be a great president if you're a Democrat. It's just crazy. My opinion. In conspiracy literature, the granddaddy of all other conspiracies is that of the New World Order. For years, fringe publications and the internet have hosted an epidemic of strident and often disjointed references to an imminent worldwide secret government clampdown. Hold on. Thought I would just go to my bookcase behind me and just grab a couple books. I've got 10 bookcases. There's one behind me. I have plenty of books to go over. Here's one by Hitler. My New Order, Hitler. The Road to War, one of the chapters. Look at the size of this book. My New Order. The Mysteries was a little thing I had inserted in this book. Got so many books, I do so much research. It'll be interesting with the series I do after this Peter Moon, Montauk, Mind Control, Philadelphia Experiment, Time Channels, all this stuff, marathon I'm doing. I need to really take a hard look at some of these books about the New Age. Information received from interdimensional beings called masters. But anyways, the mysteries of the Federal Reserve System. There's a little pamphlet in here. You can go look it up on the internet and probably print it out for free. But many of us are aware that the Federal Reserve was created in 1913 on Christmas holiday in secret, which took over the money supply of the United States. So I just thought it'd be interesting to know that Hitler wrote a book called My New Order. And if we read the book by the Pools, who financed Hitler, that would have been the Zionist Jewish people. And apparently the Bushes were involved and many other elites. Financing Hitler, financing Russia, financing Britain, all with our Federal Reserve that they created in secret, and putting the burden of the expenses on the taxpayers. That's how these things work. They can borrow all the money they want with the taxpayers and their assets as collateral. And Naomi Wolf, in the video I just watched with her speaking, a Washington, D.C. journalist and famous writer, broke down in tears on a recent video I just watched. and said that the U.S. Constitution has been suspended. Now, when that happens, and we go into martial law, there's usually a gold fringe on the USA flag. And lately, I've been watching President Obama speak in other events, and there's a gold fringe on the flag. Look up, get that gold fringe off my flag on the internet, those keywords, and you will get the exact information. And I've had people threaten me with getting in trouble or even death for mentioning the gold fringe on my comments on press releases. Betrayers of the truth, fraud and deceit in the halls of science. Just more books for me to go over. The Invisible Government, another pretty popular book. Just trying to reinforce the credibility of what we're talking about. And what we're going to read next on the New World Order. By Dan Schmoot. It says here on the back, there does exist, and has existed for a generation, an international Angelophy network which operates to some extent in the way the radical right believes the Communist Act. In fact, this network, which we may identify as the Round Table groups, has no aversion to cooperating with the Communists or any other groups. Remember, these Zionist Jewish folks created the Communists, and they also created the Freemasonic Lodges, Illuminati. You take out all the references to Judaism out of the Freemasonic handbooks and everything else, and witchcraft, and there's nothing left. Freemasonic Lodges, Illuminati, is all witchcraft occult. Interdimensional beings, apparently satanic Luciferian, in the guise of gray aliens and reptilians, operating behind the scenes to bring about a new world order. I know of the operations of this network because I've studied it for 20 years. Smarter guy than me. I'm on 11 years of research. And was permitted for 2 years in the early 1960s to examine its papers and secret records. The American branch of this organization, sometimes called the Eastern Establishment, has played a very significant role in the history of the United States in the last generation. Professor Carol Quigley, Georgetown University. The Terra Conspiracy. Jim Mars. I want to read this and go over this book. Investigative journalist Jim Mars and the Bush administration both see the attacks of 9/11 as an obvious conspiracy. The only question is, whose conspiracy was it? According to the U.S. government's official conspiracy theory, 19 suicidal Middle Eastern Muslim hijackers, their hearts full of hatred for American freedom and democracy, hijacked 4 airliners. Reportedly, 2 planes were crashed into the Twin Towers. Mars offers a more realistic and better supported conspiracy theory. He has crafted the definitive journalistic account of these events, describing the full history behind their overt and covert causes, and exposes the likely complicity of the Bush administration in the 9/11 attacks. And Jeb Bush wants to be the next president. Gets crazier. National suicide. Military aid to the Soviet Union. Anthony Sutton, a famous writer, and from my research right now with Benghazi, Al-Qaeda, created by the CIA, now named ISIS, has all been financed by the U.S. government from the Bush administration to the Obama administration. Another book here, Cosmic Conflict. So this battle that we're dealing with on Earth right now with the New World Order and all these preparations for World War III may extend beyond planet Earth. Keep an open mind. Good and evil wage war for planet Earth. Where is God when good people suffer? Will civilization end in nuclear war? Is there life after death? Is there a devil? Does it matter? Will America ever repudiate religious freedom? Nice big thick book. Just trying to add a little more credibility to what we're talking about. Conspirators' Hierarchy. This is another famous book. The Story of the Committee of 300 by John Coleman. This is some of the books I'm going to read in the future and go over with a fine-tooth comb. So all this information that we have been researching will be put into perspective. The Conspirators' Hierarchy, the Committee of 300 by Dr. John Coleman, a former member of British M16. That's like our CIA. Rips the lid off the conspiratorial group which knows no national boundaries, is above the law of all countries and controls every aspect of politics, religion, commerce, industry, banking, insurance, mining, and even the drug trade. Now remember, we're reading about the Philadelphia experiment, some of their research, if it's true, some of their technologies, which we know they have. I've been going over mind control, electronic weaponry, plagues, so much more. And it gets even more interesting. Israel and the bomb. A scholarly treatise that includes over 1,200 footnotes, yet reads like a novel. Analyzes in rich detail how this policy of nuclear capacity evolved and what made it possible. So how did Israel get the bombs? And now they want to bomb the smithereens out of Iran. They can't do that till they take down Syria, which they're having problems. Dragging the whole world into this mess, making all the Arabs in all those countries flee for their lives, bringing them to the United States and all over Europe, and now claiming they're raping all the Swiss women in Switzerland, and telling, I think the Attorney General for the United States, whatever her name is, recently said that people will be arrested who say bad things about the Arabs, Muslims. They're playing with our brains and our lives and our country. And as Naomi Wolf said, the Constitution has been suspended. My question is, has it been suspended? Is martial law in effect? Are we all so brainwashed that we don't know what's going on? So getting back to this book, on this chapter, New World Order, I just thought it might be apropos to look at a few of those other books. I just went behind me and just grabbed the first couple ones I found. I have probably 100 more on this subject. I investigate the investigators. Read the books about the authors. About all kinds of different subjects, because I believe everything is connected. So moving on, it said here, I think I went over it, in conspiracy literature, the granddaddy of all other conspiracies is that of the New World Order. says here, history, however, has shown that there are power-mad individuals who have managed to galvanize nations into coming close to actualizing their own versions of the New World Order. Hitler and his posse would be the prime example, and we just looked at that book by Hitler, My New Order. They're controlling everything out of the United Nations, and as we read in the book Report from Iron Mountain, they're using global warming, environmental issues, terrorism issues, sustainability issues. They have programs like Agenda 21, the New Age movement, the gay agenda, all one big machine to change the paradigm, the way we think and how we live, to bring about a new world order. They're microchipping children everywhere. You won't be able to buy or sell unless you accept the mark of the beast. And I recently got a new debit card in the mail, and I went to activate it and had a little talk with the lady behind the counter, and she goes, "Did you see that little microchip on your card?" And I did, a little chip on there. Let's see if I can show it to you. Right there above my finger. Crazy? All right. Moving on. Phil Schneider's chief claim was that of having been a 17-year-old employee of corporations that were at the core of the New World Order conspiracy. So Phil knew when he was working on these underground facilities, Phil Schneider, who his father was apparently involved in the Philadelphia experiment murder, the ship disappearing. He rallied against the New World Order, but never fully explained who or what it was, although he could hardly be blamed for his perplexity. When I started this investigation 11 years ago, my whole goal is to find out what the heck is going on, what's real. And prior to that, all I wanted to do was stay in my field of electronics and engineering. And I decided to buy some old books on these subjects about the inventors like Nikola Tesla and other scientific inventors. And reading their biographies, I found out that they were psychic and had other unusual knowledge and abilities. And that got me started into all that research, which I became a psychic researcher for many years until it became clearer and clearer that there was a grand conspiracy. So then I had to look into all that. So it is all tied together. And as we know, all these Illuminati Freemasonic types are into the secret mystery school of Babylon. Babylon means the gateway to the gods. They did 9/11 so they could take over the Middle East. They're trying to rid that area of all the citizens. They're digging with archaeologists everywhere with armed guards looking for something. And we have another book here called Cosmic Conflict. And apparently they're opening up portals to other dimensions, allowing interdimensional beings into this dimension, like Aleister Crowley and his horrific satanic rituals, which all of a sudden, and some of the Project Montauk satanic rituals. And about that time, we started having swarms of UFOs and other alien UFO sightings and abductions, cattle mutilations. There must be a connection. It all happened sequentially. The bewildering plot of the so-called New World Order conspiracy is so convoluted and outrageous that it may never be completely explained or understood. One must also consider that if Phil claims of being honest while functioning of the New World Order were true, then one of the hazards of such employment unbeknownst to him, may have included a brainwashing that made his telling of the tale all that much more difficult. So apparently people who do work for these government black op programs, when they get done working for them, they have to be debriefed, which is not just a conversation and telling you not to say anything. Apparently it involves trances, hypnotism, drugs, to brainwash people. And then later on, if these memories come back, start to surface, like many have, and are on the YouTube videos, like Arizona Wilder, or Miles Johnson's In the Basis series, or that other lady I just mentioned, Kathy O'Brien, so many more on my website, rickmiracle.com. You can find a whole page of different people on different videos that I've collected. You can just watch one video after another of people talking about these things. The Franklin cover-up is another book. These people are into big-time illegal money and apparently sex, pedophilia, all kinds of insane activities. In conspiracy literature, the New World Order is generally referred to as the master plan for a fascist government. With great indignation, supporters of this conspiracy claim that the groundwork for this plan is currently being laid, largely at taxpayers' expense. We're paying for our own demise, without their consent or awareness, as I keep saying. NATO bombings and UN troops movements are invoked as outward evidence of the escalation of the New World Order agenda, as are stories of secret concentration camps being built on American soil, railroad cars loaded with shackles, mysterious military receipts for the importation of thousands of guillotines. All of this on the top of this page, stuff I keep saying. Pause on your computer, read it yourself. I keep saying, don't believe me. It's in this book. And these other books. And YouTube videos. Websites. A lot of people out there doing some good investigative work. Exposing the truth. Websites get shut down. Facebook users get censored. Lisa Haven. All kinds of people out there. Infowars.com. Steve Quayle. Many more. New World Order watchdogs warn that if we do not take steps to investigate and stop these activities, we will one day wake up subject to martial law, and worse, we will get herded into concentration camps. The typical New World Order track warns about a looming, disastrous upheaval. They say that this cataclysmic scenario will actually be an event which has been carefully staged years in advance by the grand conspirators. Remember, we went over all those books about Zionism and the Talmudic Jews that says the best of the goyim shall be killed. And then in Professor Higger's book, The Jewish Utopia. Complete details, the protocols of Zion. Book after book after book. Hundreds of books I've gone over. Magazines, hundreds. Thousands of videos I've watched. Thousands of pictures I've shown. Thousands of press releases I have copied and filed and used in some of my videos. And I have many more to use. I've got thick volume books on these binders. The typical New World Order track warns about a looming disastrous upheaval. They say that this cataclysmic scenario will actually be an event which has been carefully staged years in advance by the grand conspirators. I just said all that. This tumultuous occurrence could be anything from a stock market crash to a terrorist nuclear attack. The end result will be the declaration of the national emergency by the federal government, with all precipitant, which will precipitate the implementation of various presidential executive orders. And there are documents after documents and documents on these websites about these presidential executive orders. Everything is set in place. These executive orders have been signed by the likes of Nixon, Bush, Clinton, and we know Obama. Over the years, completely suspend all constitutional rights. And Naomi Wolf said on that video I watched recently that the Constitution has been suspended, and she broke down in tears. The Federal Emergency Management System, better known as FEMA, is empowered by the executive orders to confiscate all private property and seize control of all the fuel, transportation, and food in the country. FEMA may separate families and forcibly confine citizens in any one of 43 internment camps, there's thousands of them now, which have already been built for this purpose. The executive orders which specifically enact all of the above, all are apparently in the Federal Register in the Washington, D.C., numbered 10995 through 12919, and anyone can request a copy of them. A little more to go here. Important stuff in this book. I do book reviews. I'm a loyal, patriotic USA citizen. I respect the citizens of countries all over the world. I don't want to see a one world order. I don't want to see Christianity be destroyed. People may think everything is moving along nicely, the 90% that are zombies under mind control. But when the whole situation explodes, which it looks like it will eventually, by some intentional act, everything will change overnight. It'll be horrific. It would be the United States government's ultimate undertaking in the interest of preserving its preeminent standing in the world. The United States is controlled by the Zionists. Prime Minister Sharon of Israel said in a heated argument in his Congress that you can look up, don't worry about the USA, we control the USA. Benjamin Netanyahu in Fink's Bar. Just look up Benjamin Netanyahu Fink's Bar. He says they hate America and they're going to sell us off piece by piece. Make us regret not wanting to be their slaves. Sarah Silverstein, go look up her videos. She said, yes, we killed Jesus, and if he comes back, we're going to kill him again. I could go on and on and on. But all you have to do is watch some of my previous videos. And I will go on and on and on. Crazy stuff. I agree. Worst case scenarios such as a nuclear holocaust, asteroid hit, and if you watch all the YouTube videos, you know they keep on saying these things are going to happen. They're preparing our minds. They're mind controlling us. Or some other form of economic collapse. Conspiracy whistleblowers warn, however, that our government has been infiltrated by nefarious elements that would invoke these executive orders at the moment they finally unmask their party's intentions to overtly take over the United States and the world. These same kinds of things are happening all over Europe. FYI. Conspiracy theorists such as the popular radio show host David Emery says that this clandestine invasion of our military intelligence agencies has its origin in the secret alliance made toward the end of World War II between the Nazi General Reinhard Gehlen and the OSS Chief Alan Dulles of the USA. This pact led directly to the creation of the CIA in 1947. The core of this new intelligence agency was made up of former Nazi SS officers who were issued new identities by the U.S. government, and that would have been called Project Paperclip. Plenty of books on that subject. There is a certain ring of truth to this scenario when one considers the CIA involvement over the years in destabilizing third world governments and the replacing them with fascist puppet dictatorships. Least we forget John Perkins' book, I've shown many times in my videos, The Confession of an Economic Hitman. Him and a lot of other engineering and financial experts were sent to countries to see the presidents and leaders all over the world, convincing them to borrow millions and billions to build power plants and factories and all kinds of things, promising them a huge GNP, gross national product, profit increase, which they knew would never happen, but then these countries would be bankrupt and have to fall under control of bankruptcy laws and the United Nations. An insidious, intentional plan. Money. We all know this if we watch the news. It was not and is not an accident. Could it really be that the CIA has operated as a front for the Nazi SS, working toward a Nazi agenda for world domination in a covert manner under the aegis of its former enemy, the United States government? Lest we forget, in 1913, the Zionist Jewish folks took over our Federal Reserve, the Rockefeller Rothschilds. They financed Hitler, Russia, and everybody. So all they were doing was playing chess. When Germany was about to fall, they took their best scientific men and intelligence officers and just moved them into another country to continue the same game they were intending to do, accomplish the New World Order, New Age, which is a spiritual thing from Christianity to a Luciferian doctrine. A lot of this stuff prophesied in the Bible and ancient texts. Black ops, black budget projects, and underground bases are said by conspiratologists to be the primary domain of this clandestine and modern-day Fourth Reich, where tax money is insufficient to fund this secret underground base empire and the testing of its super technologies. That would be the stuff in this book about time tunnels, mind control, and other crazy opening portals with CERN to allow interdimensional beings in our world. As King Solomon, thousands of years ago, who had a magic ring with the six-pointed star on it to call forth demons and control them. Read it in the Bible. We've gone over that, and I'm going to go over more of the information in the Bible. It's all written. It's kind of hard if you do research not to pick up on this stuff. You don't have to be Sherlock Holmes. It's right here. Book after book I go over. Where tax money is insufficient to fund this secret underground base empire. So they have an underground base empire on Earth right now. In the testing of its super technologies, we know that Gwen Towers, HARP systems, Sky Springs, satellite systems, controlling you by your cell phone, iPad, laptops, wireless, cameras monitoring everybody, etc., etc., TV programming, radio, magazine articles, billboards, everything's made to put you in a trance, mesmerization, and mind control, brainwash people. Make you think the way the government wants you to think. And try to stop you from finding out stuff that's in these books. So when they have insufficient money to fund this underground base empire and the testing of its super technologies, the illegal drug trade pays for the rest in a triangle of drugs for money for weapons that has driven wars in Vietnam, Afghanistan, former Yugoslavia, and numerous conflicts in Latin America. When was this book written here? 2001, January. So this was before 9/11. If Peter Moon were to write this book again, there would be, or this was Alexandra Bruce with Peter Moon editing it. There would be a lot more meat in this book that we all know about. Congress apparently has absolutely no power over the secret government, world of black budget programs, projects, and drug money laundering because the congressmen assigned to oversee them do not have the security clearance to know what is really going on. Black ops and any other secret government activities sanctioned by the National Security Act, by definition, operate outside of the U.S. Constitution and the Bill of Rights. No wonder some people are paranoid. And a little bit more on the last page here. However, the aggregate sum of these declarations do form a general pattern which, combined with various clues leaked by the media over the years, do make me pause to consider whether there really is a secret government in operation that is funded with multi-billion-dollar worldwide drug trade. So in 2008, when they supposedly crashed the stock market and needed to loan themselves trillions of dollars, now you know where it all went, to further the movement of the New World Order. And put the burden of those expenses, saying the USA taxpayers owe 13 to 18 trillion. And I don't think that includes interest. So it could be 40 or 50 trillion. So if they bankrupt the system, will they confiscate everybody's property and wealth and money to pay off this debt that they say they have to? Have they suspended the U.S. Constitution? Is martial law in effect? Is there a gold fringe on the flag when you see the president speak? If there is, go look up. Get that gold fringe off my flag on the internet. Those keywords. These leaks include the Iran-Contra scandal of 1980s, which linked the Reagan White House with the unsanctioned and illegal peddling of arms and cocaine to support right-wing insurgents in Central America. The 1996 investigative reporting by Pulitzer Prize-winning Gary Webb in the San Jose Mercury News powerfully substantiated that the CIA was heavily involved in the Los Angeles crack trade of the 1980s. Webb's series of articles led to an uproar in the Afro-American communities, culminating in a bizarre and unprecedented nationally televised town hall type of meeting held in the predominantly black Los Angeles neighborhood of Compton. The director of the CIA at the time, John Dulce, attempted to reassure the area's residents on live television that the CIA would never have condoned the sale of drugs to local gangs. Dulce was soon sacked from his job and has since lost his security clearances as well. It really makes you wonder. So I could go on to the next chapter, but suffice it to say, I'll show you what it is. Chapter 13. An ominous number, the death card and the tarot card, and the magic number for witchcraft, 13. Anyways, the name of that chapter is The Psychic Physics of Insanity. So let me just look at the other names of these chapters in this book. The Real Philadelphia Experiment. I don't believe I'm going to make any more videos on this book. But I would think that Chapter 16, Cover-Up. That if you are interested, it has all kinds of documents here. And Atlantis. What does Atlantis have to do with all this? The reptoids? Well, maybe I will do one more video. I'll have to read all this stuff and make one on Atlantis and the reptoids. Reality check? And epilogue. So there you have it. Some more interesting information. And my commentary. Give us all a little bit of background on some of the things that are said to be going on in the world, have happened, and the potential of the high technologies and the looming push for the New World Order involving satanic religions of Lucifer worship, Baal, Moloch, Freemasons, Illuminati, secret governments, secret mystery school of Babylon, microchipping the people, all these scare tactics, terrorist situations. Makes one wonder. Rick Miracle reporting.